The screams from the rocks. The planet was quiet. The sky was dark purple, with 2 small moons hanging above the hills. Cold wind blew over sharp black rocks. Strange birds flew high, making soft clicking sounds. But suddenly, the silence broke. A scream, high, sharp, painful. Then another scream, louder. It echoed across the empty land. Under a pile of heavy black stones, something moved. A long, slim tail, bright blue and glowing at the tip, twitched in pain. Small fingers tried to push the rocks, but they were too heavy. She screamed again. The alien girl was young. Her skin was light silver, and her eyes were wide and glowing green. She was trapped. Her tail was stuck under the rocks. Blood, dark and thick, flowed slowly. No one answered her cries. She was alone, afraid, hurt. She pressed a small round button on her wrist device. A weak signal went out into the sky. It was the last working thing she had. She whispered something in her language, "Srick, help," but there was no reply. Far away, beyond the hills and trees, a small human ship was parked near the edge of a cliff. The ship was old but strong. Its name, Hope Walker. Inside, a human soldier sat at a console. His name was Jake Carter. Brown hair, tired eyes, rough beard. He wore a black survival suit. He was fixing a broken scanner when he heard a strange beep, 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 beep. He looked up. A red dot flashed on his screen. An unknown signal. Weak, but real. Jake pressed a few buttons. A sound played through the speaker. A scream, then static, then a soft voice he couldn't understand. "What the hell?" he whispered. He checked the map. The signal came from 3 kilometers east. A rocky, his zone marked as unsafe. He grabbed his gear scanner, first aid kit, energy knife, and stepped out of the ship. Cold wind hit his face. The ground was rough. The sky above was getting darker. Jake moved fast. Something about that scream felt wrong. It didn't sound like a machine or a trick. It sounded alive. The alien girl tried again to move. Pain shot through her body. She cried out and stopped. Her small hand glowed slightly, a sign of stress in her species. She closed her eyes. Memories flashed: her ship crashing, her friends shouting, fire, darkness, then nothing. She didn't want to die here. Not like this, not alone. Suddenly, her ears twitched. A sound, footsteps, slow, careful. She opened her eyes. A figure walked between the rocks, tall, 2 legs, metal armor, a human. Her eyes went wide. She had seen humans before, but only from a distance. Her people said humans were dangerous, cold, full of fire and metal. But this one looked curious. Jake stopped when he saw her. His eyes widened. He raised his scanner. Life form detected. Heart rate, fast. Species unknown. He slowly stepped closer. The alien girl hissed in fear. She tried to crawl back, but her tail was still trapped. She pointed a small blade at him, shaking. Jake raised both hands. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but his voice was calm, gentle. Jake looked at the rocks, heavy, sharp, crushing her tail. He turned on his energy knife. The girl screamed again, thinking he was attacking. But Jake didn't attack. He knelt beside her and cut the rocks carefully. Bit by bit, slowly, gently. The girl stopped, screaming. She watched him, confused. He was helping her. After 10 minutes, Jake removed the final rock. Her tail was free, but bleeding badly. Jake opened his first aid kit. He tried to wrap the wound. She flinched, but didn't stop him. Wind blew again. The sky rumbled. Something moved in the distance. A shadow, large, watching. Jake didn't see it yet, but the alien girl did. Her eyes widened in fear. She pointed behind him. Her voice cracked. "Relax, relax." Jake turned slowly. Nothing. But the girl kept pointing. Something was out there, watching both of them, waiting. The wind was quiet now. The rocks no longer moved, but the fear in her heart did not stop. The alien girl sat up slowly. Her tail, though freed, still throbbed with pain. Blood had stopped flowing, but it still hurt. Her large green eyes stayed locked on the human man. He had not killed her. He had not hurt her. He helped her. Why? Jake Carter, still crouched beside her, watched her carefully. He held up both hands again, showing he meant no harm. His voice was calm. "You're safe now," he said. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Soft, kind, not a warrior's voice. She touched her wrist device. Broken, useless. Her people were not coming. Jake pointed at her wound, and then at himself. Mimetic, he said. I can help. The girl hesitated, then nodded, just once. Jake took a clean cloth from his kit and gently cleaned the wound. She winced, but didn't pull away. He wrapped the tail with care. The blue glow dimmed as her pain faded. She looked at him again. His eyes were strange, brown, soft, yet strong, not like the red eyes of her enemies. Suddenly, she spoke. Just one word, Sarek. Jake tilted his head. Sarek, she nodded. Friend, he smiled. The silence was broken again, not by a scream this time, but by a low growl from the rocks above. Jake looked up. He scanned the ridge. Nothing. But the girl's body stiffened. Her breathing became sharp. Her eyes locked on the same ridge. Something was there. Jake grabbed his scanner and turned it on. The screen blinked. No life signs, but he trusted her eyes more than his machine. He looked at her. We need to move. She didn't need translation. She tried to stand but fell. Jake caught her. Without asking, he lifted her in his arms. She made a small sound, half protest, half surprised, but didn't stop him. The sky turned darker. The wind grew cold. He carried her down the rocks, staying low, careful with every step. Behind them, small pebbles rolled down the hill. Something was following. Jake moved faster. His boots crunched softly on the dirt. Trees appeared ahead, thin, twisted trees with silver leaves that hissed in the wind. He reached the first tree and stopped. A good hiding spot. He set her down carefully against the tree trunk. She looked at him, eyes wide. He spoke softly. You okay? She didn't answer. Instead, she touched her chest and said, Ara. Ara, he asked. Your name? She nodded. Ara. He smiled and pointed at himself. Jake. She repeated it slowly. Jake. Before they could speak more, the growl came again, closer this time. Jake turned. Nothing there. But something was hunting. He whispered, We need cover. Ara nodded. She pointed to the left, a small dark opening in the rocks. The cave. Jake helped her up. She limped, holding his arm. Together, they reached the cave and went inside. It was cold, dry. The walls were smooth, like glass, but cracked in places. Jake set down a small light. A soft white glow filled the space. Era sat near the wall, tail curled beside her. She closed her eyes, breathing hard. Jake stood at the entrance, watching the dark. Nothing moved. Yet inside the cave, Ara picked up a small stick. She scratched something on the wall. Jake turned to look. She was drawing, first a ship, then figures, her people, then fire, then shadows. Jake walked closer. What is that? She pointed to the shadows, then made claws with her hands, growled. Low. Jake understood. The creature hunting them. It killed her team. She drew a big circle. Inside, only two figures remained. A tall one with a stick, a small one with a tail. Jake and her. The last ones. Jake sat beside her. We'll make it out, he said softly. I promise. She didn't know the words, but the tone calmed her. She leaned against the wall, tired. Jake watched the cave entrance. His hand rested on his weapon. The wind outside howled, then stopped. Silence, then scratch. Scratch. Something brushed the cave wall outside. Jake stood up. His light flickered. He turned it off. Darkness. He held his breath. His heart pounded. So did Ara's. The scratching stopped. Jake whispered, Stay quiet. She did. Outside, a shadow moved. Tall, thin, wrong, but it didn't come in. Minutes passed, then more. It left. For now, Jake turned the light back on. Ara looked at him, fear still in her eyes. He forced a small smile. First contact was made, but the real danger had just begun. The cave was dark and still. Only a soft blue glow from Ara's tail lit the space now. Jake sat near the entrance, holding his scanner tightly. His eyes stayed on the shadows outside. Nothing moved, but he could feel it. Something had been watching them, something large, silent, patient. Jake turned to look at Ara. She was awake, though barely. Her silver skin looked pale under the light. She hugged her knees and kept her eyes on the wall. She was drawing again. This time, her hand moved. Faster. More shadows. More claws. A strange round symbol. Teeth. Eyes. She pointed to the drawing and said one word, sharp and fearful. Ranok. Jake repeated it. Ranok. Ara nodded slowly. Hunter, silent death. Jake frowned. What is it? Ara tried to explain. With her hands, She made the shape of a tall creature, long arms, sharp fingers. Then she dragged her hand across her throat. Jake understood that part very well. He looked at the scanner again. Still no life signs. Just static. This thing doesn't even show up on sensors, he muttered. Ara's eyes locked on his machine. No, Ranok, Jake sighed. Great. They sat in silence for a while. The wind outside had stopped again. No howls, no clicks, just stillness. Jake checked his watch. Only 4 hours since the signal. Felt like days. He stood and stretched. His muscles ached. His back was sore. Ara watched him. Her eyes followed every move. She still didn't trust him completely, but she no longer feared him. That was progress. Jake walked a little deeper into the cave. His light flickered again. He smacked it. Nothing. Batteries dying, he muttered. As he turned a corner, something on the wall caught his eye. Marks. Marks deep, wide, fresh. He stepped closer, counted them, for long slashes, almost a meter high. The same creature had been here. Great, Jake whispered. We're inside its house. Suddenly, a small sound echoed behind him, a whisper of movement. He turned around, knife in hand. Nothing there, but he knew what he felt. Something was there. He ran back to Ara. We're leaving. She looked confused. Now Jake nodded. Now he grabbed his gear, helped her to her feet. Her limp was worse now, but she could still walk with help. He gave her his arm. She took it without hesitation. They stepped out of the cave into the cold night. The stars above were dull. Clouds moved fast. The 2 moons had disappeared. Darkness was full. Jake moved carefully through the trees. His ears stayed sharp. Every twig snap made his heart jump. Ara didn't speak. She just listened. She was listening for it. Then snap. Jake stopped. Another snap. Too heavy to be wind. Too soft to be a fall. It was walking slow. Watching. He turned off his light again. Darkness swallowed them. Ara gripped his arm tighter. Her claws slightly dug into his suit. Then silence. Jake didn't move. Suddenly, a loud crack from behind a tree falling. Not cut. Crushed. Jake whispered. Run. He didn't wait for a reply. They ran. Ara limped, but Jake helped her move. Fast. Branches hit their faces. Thorns tore at clothes. But they kept going. Behind them, a new sound filled the air. A clicking growl. Low. Hungry. Not animal. Not machine. Something between. Jake looked back. He saw nothing. Then 2 yellow eyes, floating in the dark, high above the ground. Too high. The creature stepped forward, but not fully into the light. It wanted to be feared first. Ara screamed. Ranok. Jake fired blindly behind him. The blast lit the trees. The creature vanished. They didn't stop. After what felt like forever, they reached a river. Fast moving, loud. Jake stopped. Water will hide our scent. He stepped in. Cold stabbed his legs, but he pulled Ara with him. They moved downstream, water rising to their waists. The current was strong, but they held on. Behind them, nothing followed. For now, after a while, they climbed out onto the muddy shore, both soaking, both breathing hard. Jake checked Ara's leg, bleeding again. He ripped cloth from his sleeve and tied it tight. She looked at him with new eyes now. Not fear, not confusion, respect. She whispered, Jake's Rick. He smiled tiredly. Yeah, friend. They looked back into the dark woods. Still no sound, still no movement. But they both knew the truth. Noek was still out there, still watching, still waiting. This was no longer just a rescue. It was war. The fire was small but warm. Jake had started it with dried leaves and a heat pack from his belt. The flames danced low, hidden by a ring of stones. Smoke drifted upward, disappearing into the night sky. They had found shelter beneath a broken shuttle wing half buried in the mud near the river. Old wreckage, maybe 10 years or more. Burnt edges, vines wrapped around broken metal. Jake checked Ara's leg again. The bleeding had stopped, but the wound was deep. He applied a healing patch from his kit. It glowed green against her silver skin. She winced but didn't pull away. You're strong, Jake said softly. Ara didn't answer. She just looked at the fire. Her eyes reflected the flames, tired, distant. She hadn't spoken much since they escaped the woods. She kept staring into the shadows. Jake understood. He had seen that look in soldiers before. After battles, after loss, after fear. He sat across from her. They were quiet for a long time. The only sounds were the fire crackling and water rushing in the nearby river. Finally, she spoke. Why? Help me. Her voice was slow, careful. The words didn't come easy. Jake looked at her. Because you needed help. She tilted her head. Not your kind. No, Jake said. But that doesn't matter. She pointed to herself. Enemy. Jake shook his head. Not to me. Ara stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to read something hidden in his face. Then she picked up a stick and drew in the dirt. 2 figures. One tall, one small with a tail. Then more figures. Tall with weapons. Circles for eyes. She looked at Jake. Your kind came before. Jake nodded slowly. Soldiers. A war. Long ago. Many dead, she said. He lowered his eyes. I know. She crossed out the 2 figures. No trust. Jake didn't argue. He couldn't. Humans had done bad things on alien worlds. They had taken things that weren't theirs. Not every explorer was a hero. Maybe we start again, he said quietly. Era said nothing. The fire cracked again. Then Dash snapped. Both heads turned fast. A sound. Close. Jake stood quickly and put out the fire with dirt. He grabbed his weapon. Ara pulled herself behind a piece of metal. Her eyes locked. On the trees. Silence. Then, rustling. Jake raised his scanner. Still nothing. The machine didn't see the Renok, but they both felt it. A shadow passed across the moonlight. Jake raised his weapon, heart pounding. Come on, he whispered. Show yourself. Then Dash movement. Not from the trees. From behind the shuttle. Jake spun. Too late. Something slammed into him. He hit the mud hard, weapon flying from his hand. He looked up. It wasn't the Roanoke. It was another alien, same species as Arabut, bigger male, wearing black armor and a breathing mask. Jake reached for his knife, but the alien kicked it away. The stranger grabbed Jake by the neck and lifted him off the ground. Jake choked, legs kicking, then a shout. Stop, Ara. The male looked at her. Eyes narrowed. He said something in their language. Fast, angry, she replied, loud and firm. He dropped Jake into the mud. Jake coughed, gasping. Ara limped toward the male and placed herself. Between them she spoke again, calm, strong. The male replied sharply, then pointed at Jake. Ara shook her head. She turned to Jake. My brother. Jake looked at him, still breathing hard. Nice to meet you. Her brother didn't laugh. He said something else. Ara hesitated, then looked down. She turned to Jake. He says, humans killed our family, took our home. He wants revenge. Jake nodded slowly. I get it. She looked sad. He wants me to leave you. Jake didn't speak. Then she added, or he will kill you. Jake stood slowly, raising both hands. I'm not here to fight, he said. I saved her. That should mean something. Her brother stepped forward. Ara stepped in front again. No, she said. He is Sarek. Her brother growled. But then, he lowered his weapon, only slightly. He spoke again. Era translated. He says, prove it. Jake raised an eyebrow. Prove what? She pointed to the woods. Hunt the Ronak. Kill it. Then he will believe. Jake looked at the dark trees. That thing wants us dead, he said. It doesn't bleed, doesn't sleep. She nodded. It watches, waits, but it can die. Jake looked back at her brother. The alien warrior stared at him with cold, hateful eyes. Jake nodded once. Fine, I'll hunt it, but not for him, for you. Ara blinked. Jake picked up his weapon and checked the charge. He looked at the trees. Again, something was watching, and now he was going to watch back. Jake walked alone through the dark woods. His boots pressed softly into the wet ground. The trees around him twisted like bones. Moonlight barely touched the forest floor. His weapon stayed ready, set to stun, then kill if needed. Behind him, nothing followed, but he knew something was ahead. The Roanoke that it didn't make noise. It didn't breathe like other creatures. But Jake felt it watching, waiting, somewhere in the dark. He wasn't hunting it. Not really, it was hunting him. But this time, he had a plan. Back at the shuttle wreck, Era had given him her brother's old scanner, one that could read heat, not just life signs. It worked differently from his dot. The Ranok didn't give off life signals, but it did leave behind cold patches of space where the air suddenly dropped in temperature, as if heat avoided the thing completely. Jake checked the scanner. A blue circle glowed on the screen ahead. It was close. He moved slower now, quiet, eyes sharp. As he passed an old tree, he saw something strange, a helmet cracked, human design. He picked it up. Scratched letters were barely visible. UNIT 47. 1. of the old recon teams. Lost years ago. Jake set it down and kept walking. Whatever killed them was still here, and it wasn't done. Back at the wreck, Ara sat near the fire again. Her brother paced nearby, weapon in hand. He didn't speak much, just grunted. But Ara could feel his anger, his pain. He hadn't forgiven her for trusting Jake. She didn't blame him, but she didn't regret it either. Jake had saved her. Twice he had shared food, wrapped her wounds, called her friend. That word meant something now. She looked up at the stars. "Please don't die," she whispered. Jake reached a clearing. He crouched near a fallen log and placed down small charger shock mines from his belt. Each one blinked softly. A trap. He stepped back, hiding behind a large stone. His finger hovered on the detonator. The cold grew deeper. He didn't hear it. He didn't see it. But the scanner turned solid blue dot. It was here. He held his breath. For a long time, nothing. Then a shimmer in the air, like heat rising but reversed. The Roanoke stepped forward. It was tall, twice his height, thin but powerful, skin like metal, but soft like shadows. No face, only a smooth helmet, with lines that glowed dim red. Jake didn't move. The creature stopped at the center of the clearing, right over the mines. Jake pressed the button. Boom. Electric pulses shot up. Blue light filled the air. The Roanoke staggered, arms flailing, limbs twitching from the shock. Jake ran forward and fired. One shot sent a mass. The blast hit it, but it didn't fall. It turned toward him, shaking, steaming. Jake fired again. The Roanoke jumped sideways, dodging fast. It landed with a crash, knocking over a tree. It let out a deep clicking growl. Then it ran at him. Jake dodged behind a rock. The creature smashed into it, cracking stone. Jake rolled out, firing more shots. The creature stumbled but didn't stop. One claw swiped across his arm. Blood sprayed. Jake cried out, fell back. The Roanoke raised both arms to strike again. Then boom, a blast from behind. The Roanoke jerked, then turned. Era's brother stood at the edge of the clearing, weapon smoking. Behind him Era, limping, but standing tall. They had come. The Roanoke turned to them. Jake grabbed his blade and jumped. He stabbed deep into the back of its leg. The creature roared a strange, broken sound. Era's brother fired again. 2 shots, straight into its side. The Roanoke collapsed. Jake backed away, panting. The ground was quiet. The forest was still. It was over. Later, they sat near the river again. Jake wrapped his arm, bleeding but alive. Ara sat close, tail curled lightly around. His boot. Her brother stood nearby, silent, watching Jake. Then, he stepped forward and held out his hand. Jake looked at it. Surprised, he took it. A shake, not friendly, but not enemies anymore. Ara smiled. She pointed at Jake, then said to her brother Cyric. The brother nodded once. Slowly. Jake looked at Ara. Did we pass the test? She laughed softly. You are hunter now. Jake chuckled. Let's hope I never have to do that again. Above them, the stars shined brighter. But Jake knew this planet held more secrets and more danger. They had won tonight, but tomorrow, the body of the Roanoke lay still. For the first time in days, the forest was quiet. No whispers in the dark, no hidden movement, just silence, and the smell of burnt skin. Jake sat on a log by the river, breathing slowly. His arm was wrapped in cloth, blood still soaking through. Every part of his body ached, but he was alive. He should have felt victory. He didn't. Ara knelt beside the dead creature, her eyes fixed on its strange armor. Her brother stood behind her, weapon raised, just in case. Jake spoke, voice low. Is it really dead? Ara nodded. Yes, this one. Jake didn't miss the way she said it. This one. There are more, she said. Others like it, some worse. Jake looked down at the ground. The weight of everything crashed down on him. His ship was damaged. His mission failed. He had no backup, no command. And now, no easy way off this planet. Still, he had saved her, and he would do it again. Suddenly, Era's brother turned sharply. His eyes locked on Jake. He spoke fast in their language. Angry, sharp. Jake looked at Era. What's he saying? She hesitated. Then, said softly, he wants to end it now. Jake frowned. End what? Era stood, facing her brother. They argued. Their voices rose, words quick and heavy. Jake caught only one thing, his name. Then silence. Ara turned back to Jake, eyes filled with sorrow. My brother, He says only one of you can live. Jake stood slowly. What? He believes, she said carefully, that if you live, more humans will come, more death, more war. Jake looked at her brother. The warrior stood tall, weapon in hand, calm, ready. And if I die? Jake asked. He spares me, she said. Takes me home. Ends this. Jake clenched his fists. So, it's a trade. She didn't reply. Jake stepped back, hands raised. After all this, I'm still just the enemy. Ara looked away. Her silence was answer enough. The moment stretched long. Then Jake did something no one expected. He dropped his weapon. It fell into the mud with a soft thud. Ara's eyes widened. Her brother blinked. Jake raised his hands. You want me gone? Fine, take your shot. He stepped forward, one slow step at a time. I came to help. I saved her. I bled for her. And still, I'm not trusted. He looked directly at Aras. Brother, I'm tired of fighting. The brother raised his weapon. Aras shouted, no. The weapon paused mid-air. Jake didn't move. He whispered, do it. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Aras stepped between them. She stood in front of Jake, arms spread wide. Her voice was soft but firm. I choose. Her brother's eyes narrowed. Choose what? Ara turned slightly, looking back at Jake. I choose to believe him. Jake stared at her, confused, then touched. She looked back at her brother. If one must die, then let it be the hate, not the human. Her brother lowered his weapon. Slowly, his shoulders dropped. He looked tired now. Older. He spoke again. This time, gently. Jake looked at Ara. She smiled, eyes full of emotion. He says, he will not fight you. Jake let out a breath. He didn't realize he was holding. Finally, hours passed. They buried the Ronok deep in the woods. Under stone and ash. Jake stood at the edge of the forest, looking at the sky. The clouds were clearing. One moon shone bright, lighting the path. Ara joined him. You could have fought, she said. I was ready to. Jake replied. But you didn't. No, he said. I didn't want to kill someone she cared about. Ara smiled. My brother was wrong. You are not like the others. Jake looked at her. What about you? Will your people trust me? She shrugged. Some will, some won't. Jake nodded. That's fair. They stood in silence a while longer. Then Ara asked, what now? Jake looked back toward the wreckage of his ship. I try to fix my comms, send a message home, maybe. Or maybe I stay, he said. There's a lot to learn here, and some things worth protecting. Ara looked up at the stars. Not all humans are bad, and not all aliens are enemies. Jake smiled. Then maybe there's hope. She stepped closer. If more Ronok come, we fight together. Jake nodded. Together. A moment passed. Then Ara touched his hand, her fingers cold, but gentle. Jake, Sarek. He squeezed a hand lightly. Yes, he said. Always. Above them, in the black sky, something moved, a flicker of light, not a star, not natural. Another ship, or another threat. Whatever it was coming fast. But this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The signal tower blinked once, then went dark. Jake stood beside it, wiping sweat from his face. Wires were melted. The solar panel was cracked. A wild storm from 2 nights ago had hit hard. He cursed softly. That tower was their last chance to send a long-range message. Behind him, the forest stretched out in endless green. Somewhere out there, more Ronok could be watching. But for now the area was quiet, safe. Safe. For the moment. Footsteps approached. Arra. Just she walked slowly, her limp still not fully healed, but her eyes were bright, full of life. Her silver skin shimmered slightly under the sun, and her tail curled gently. Behind her, Jake smiled at her. Bad news. Towers fried. She tilted her head, not understanding every word. But she caught his tone. He pointed at the tower, then made a small explosion sound with his mouth and hands. Ara laughed. Boom. Jake chuckled. Yeah, exactly. They sat on a rock nearby. Quiet filled the space between them, the kind that didn't feel heavy anymore, not like before. Ara looked at the sky. No ships. Not yet, Jake replied. But someone will hear us. Sooner or later. She looked thoughtful. And if no one comes? Jake shrugged. Then we make a new life here. You, me, your brother. Maybe even build a small base. Call it Second Chance. She smiled at that. Strange name. Jake nodded. Yeah, but maybe fitting. She looked at him for a long moment, then asked, you missed home? Jake didn't answer right away. I don't know, he said finally. Out here, everything's harder, but it feels more real. I think I belong more now than I ever did back there. She looked down at the ground, drew a circle with her finger in the dirt, that then said softly, I used to fear humans. I thought all were fire and blood. Jake looked at her. And now, No one, she said. Only one, but he is not fire. Jake gave a tired smile. Glad I could help change your mind. Ara hesitated, then asked, if your people come, will they hurt mine? Jake grew quiet again. I don't know, he said honestly. Some might, but not if I can stop it. She nodded slowly. Then you must lead, be the voice. Jake laughed me. I'm just a mechanic with a good blaster. No, she said. You are more. She reached into a pouch and pulled out a small stone, carved with her people's mark. She handed it to him. Jake looked at it. What's this? A sign, she said, of trust. Jake took it gently. I'll protect it, I promise. Just then, a crackle came from the CUM unit by the base. Faint, but real. ... This is Scout Vessel Kestrel, responding to distress signal. Repeat, this is Scout Vessel Kestrel. Jake jumped up. That's human tech. He ran to the CUM and grabbed the mic. This is Jake Carter, stranded on grid E29. I'm with 2 survivors. We need evac. The radio buzzed again. Signal weak. Can't lock coordinates. Visual beacon needed. Jake turned to Ara. We need light. Now. Together, they grabbed flares, solar lights, anything that could shine. They climbed a ridge and placed the beacons in a circle. Jake hit the switch. A bright blue light shot into the sky, flashing in rhythm. Minutes passed. Nothing then. A shape in the sky. Sleek, shiny, human design. A ship. Jake stared in disbelief. They found us. The vessel hovered, then slowly lowered. Toward a clearing, Ara stepped beside Jake. Her eyes narrowed. Your people come now. Jake nodded. They'll see me, and maybe trust you too. Ara didn't speak. The ramp of the ship opened. 3 humans in white armor stepped out, holding scanners. Jake raised a hand. Don't shoot. They're with me. The leader stepped forward. Lieutenant Carter. That's me. The soldiers scanned Ara and her brother. They're not human. Jake stood firm. They're allies. They helped me survive. The man didn't lower his weapon. Jake stepped in front of Ara. You want to take me? Fine. But they come too, or I stay. There was silence. Then the soldier lowered his scanner. We'll take them. Jake turned to Ara and smiled. She stared at the ship, nervous. Jake offered his hand. She took it slowly as they walked toward the ramp. Jake whispered, It's okay. I'll stay beside you. Then, right before they stepped on the ship, Ara stopped. She turned to Jake, looked into his eyes, and spoke her first full word in English. Hero. Jake froze, then smiled. Not the tired smile he wore every day, but the one that said, this mattered. She mattered. They all did. He squeezed her hand. And together, they stepped into a new future.